Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Mark Bowman from North Carolina Wesleyan. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Thanks for being here. Now, some people are going to see this and say, "Wait a minute, I've seen this guy before." And yeah, I think this may be a first, but hey, that's we're all about firsts here. And this is the second time we're chatting, but the first time
Uh-huh.
was like I think you were one of my earlier interviews, so it's been a couple years. We
Yep.
figured, you know what? Let's try this again. Let's give some folks some newer information, right? Which is
Yep.
which is always a good thing. Um, so you and I are talking here towards the end of September. You're kind of in the about approaching the meat of that season, right? Where things get tough, but I appreciate you taking the time. So one of the things, I always start these off focused more on the recruiting side.
Mhm.
Um, just ballpark it for me of your typical week right now.
Mhm.
How much, in a percentage terms, how much of your week is spent on recruiting versus everything else?
Yeah. For us during the season, it's really, really minimal. So it might be 5%. And the benefit for us is so a lot of our, I'm sure we'll get into this later, but a lot of our roster's international. And so the international piece, a lot of that recruiting's done semester to semester, at least in our program. And so there's a lot of we're talking to a couple guys now that we'll try and get in here in January. But then once the season ends, that's when we'll really start looking at recruiting guys for next fall. And then obviously we have some domestic guys, and the domestic timetable is a little bit different. Some of those guys we're talking to a year out, and so it's just about getting those guys on campus and getting them to come watch a game during the season.
So obviously men's skews a little later than girls,
Mhm.
and D3 skews a little later than D1 and 2. So
Yep.
we're expecting you to be a little bit on the later side, but just out of curiosity, I mean, are you, how much of your time then is 25s versus 26s right now? What's that split?
We are pretty much completely 25s.
Okay.
So we really work 1 year at a time, and kind of like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we work one semester at a time, really. Um, and so yeah, if there's some 26s that we've identified at camps from this summer, or that uh, my assistant's coaching in club or something like that, we'll make sure we have that relationship and are able to build that relationship. But we're not actively pursuing 26s, or really anything beyond 25s.
Okay. Now, saying we're predominantly international as a D3, you don't hear that very often. So
No.
kind of talk to me about that. How did that come about? What's the difference that at NC Wesleyan that allows that? Kind of what's the thought process there?
Yeah. So we really, not my predecessor, probably two or three coaches back, really started going international. Um, and I don't know what started that, but each coach that's come through has kind of kept it going. And I grew up overseas. I actually grew up in Morocco, and so for me, I've always loved the international aspect, international students, international student athletes. Um, and so, yeah, for us, the university has a really good international scholarship, so we're able to get international students here for it's closer to the high end of the glass ceiling for internationals, but for at least for affordable for a lot of our internationals. So that's a uh, huge kind of niche for us to tap into. And so we figure might as well go all in and get as many of those guys as we can. So right now our roster makeup is about 95% international to 5% um, domestic. Ideally, I'd like to get that up a little bit, get the domestic number up a little bit higher. I think that really allows for a really good mix of cultures. It allows our international students to experience American culture, but then also allows the Americans that we bring in to experience international culture too. So it ideally we'd love to get a little bit higher than that, but right now that's where we're sitting.
Okay. So are you doing all of that recruiting just via video and Zoom and what is that like?
Yeah, for the most part, that's all through international recruiting agencies. So we have relationships with a bunch of different agencies all around the world, and so we'll through conversations with them, we'll get prospects and watch highlight videos, and then from there, it's all about Zoom calls and WhatsApp text messaging and yeah, and so then we're a lot of it's just through that highlight video, um, and then the conversations that we have afterwards with the athlete, with their family, um, just trying to build that relationship and hopefully bring in guys that yeah live the way that we want, and the guys that we want to bring in that are kind of doing things the way that we want to do them.
Okay. Now you mentioned camps a minute ago. Do you guys do your own camps? Do your staff work other camps? How important are camps if a lot of these international kids really aren't coming there,
Yeah.
but
No, our staff works summer camps. We have not had a whole lot of success with our own camps. And so we do a lot. Like I work pretty much predominantly NC State and High Point camps. Um, every once in a while, if I can find another camp to get to that's relatively close, I'll do that as well. The big thing for us domestically is we want to try and focus on local guys, guys that whose families can come out to watch games, and on long weekends maybe can invite some of our international guys to their house, kind of build those relationships with families. It doesn't mean we're completely against guys from outside the area, but we do want to focus our domestic players on local guys if we can.
okay. Well, whether it's the internationals or the domestics, kind of what is it that you're looking for? What makes you want to offer somebody a spot at North Carolina Wesleyan?
Yeah, for us, it's we have our what we call our three trademark behaviors. So for us, those three are hard work, discipline, and commitment. And so that's really what we're looking for in players. We look for players that are going to come in, work really hard, not just on the field, but also in the classroom. Make sure that they're doing everything right as far as trying to take care of their bodies, what they're eating, how they're sleeping, how they're resting, how they're training. And then the discipline piece is really big too. As a student athlete, man, if you don't have discipline to make sure you're getting all of your classwork done. How are you managing your time between classes and practices and travel and all that stuff. And then obviously the emotional discipline as well. Can you find ways to like when games get tough and games get a little feisty, are you able to control your emotions, be disciplined in how you do things? And then commitment. We ask our guys that come in, we want them to be committed not just to the program, but also to their teammates, to getting better, and to really improving in every aspect of the game. And so, um, are they committed to are they interested in being committed to one team, to one program, to one group of guys? How committed are they to succeeding in their academics? Those things are really important to us, and so we want to try and find guys that kind of fit those three trademark behaviors.
Okay. Now, one thing also when it comes to recruiting is how many you have to recruit, right? So what is the roster size situation there? Looks like you guys have a developmental team. What's that like? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So we have a roster. Our roster annually is hovers around 55. This year we're a little bit bigger because we have 17 guys, or I think it's 15 guys graduating now. So graduating class of 15, we wanted to try and bring in a couple extra guys that could take a year to get to learn the process, so that we're not trying to recruit a massive first year class and trying to rebuild. So we're trying to kind of uh, decrease that kind of learning curve, that we'd have the drop off from the seniors. But our roster is usually around 55, and we have the development team and the first team. The first team is made up the way that we're doing it this year, and I think this is probably how we'll move forward with it. Is we have our core first team guys. So this year it ends up being mostly seniors, some sophomores, some we have a freshman that's on there now, and then every day we have different call up guys. So, but based on the development team, we'll call guys up how they've trained in the last day, how they played in the last game, what positions we need for training that day. So we'll call guys up for that day, or maybe may end up being for the weekend if we have two games or something like that. And so that obviously helps the development team guys, hopefully motivate them to and gives them a pathway up to the first team to get experience training with the first team. Because we've a lot of us have been in that situation where you're player number 25 on the depth chart, and yeah, you get to train, but then you're just sitting on the bench the whole time. And so for us, we really want our guys to develop through gameplay. So this year we have 17 development team games. So really a full season for our development team, which now gives our guys that would normally be sitting at the end of the bench, now they get a chance to develop through some really strong competition. And a lot of our development team games are against some of the local D2 schools and their development teams. And then we play a couple junior colleges as well. So we're really trying to find ways to maximize our development of players as much as possible, and while also giving them a lot of them the opportunity to uh, kind of stay or get experience with that first team and experience the level and the quality and the intensity, and hopefully bring that back with them to the development team.
Okay. Well, you mentioned junior colleges just there and trying to recruit kids with experience. So do you recruit junior colleges at all? And we with the
Mhm.
new NCAA rules coming down the pike, we know that transfer portal is going to be quite quite large. Is that
Yes.
anything you guys look at all when you're doing your recruiting?
Yeah, it is. We have a couple of our guys on our roster now that were junior college guys and transfer guys. Especially for me, especially I look at the January, like guys coming in the spring. And those guys, we really, if we can, we want to try and make sure those are guys that have previous college experience. Because international guys coming in, if the spring semester and the spring season is their first, is their kind of that first introduction, they don't really get that great of a taste in their mouth for college soccer. When at the Division III level, you're only given 24 contact dates over the course of 4 months. In our experience, we've had a lot of guys be like, "Yeah, coach, this just isn't enough soccer for me." And I'm like, "Yeah, I understand that. Come back for the season, come back for the fall, because the fall's a very different thing." But it's so we try and really get the transfer guys in the spring if we can, and then obviously we're always open to bringing in some transfer guys in the fall.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the school.
Mhm.
I had the chance to play there. I won't say how many years ago, but it was about 25. Uh, and I'll contend it was the biggest field I ever played on, but it was probably the most gorgeous field I ever played on as a D3 college athlete. So, hopefully it's both of those things still for you there,
Yes, it
but.
is.
But talk to us about North Carolina Wesleyan. What do you like specifically about the university? What are some things that stand out? Maybe some things we wouldn't even know by going through the website.
Yeah. So for me, the biggest thing that I love about this university is how people oriented it is. We have a lot of our international students that come in, and just like a lot of domestic students come in, might not have the exact experience that they were looking for or that they expected. And so they think about potentially transferring, but at the end of the day, the comment that I hear the most is, Coach, the people here just love really, really well. The people around campus have become like family. I just can't leave my family. And so that's a huge thing when your professors and the cafeteria staff and coaching staff and athletic trainers are really treating you like family. That's a huge benefit that is really hard to make. It's really hard to have something tangible or a way to write that down to experience it. Um, but once you come and you understand that how much people around here love the people on campus are amazing. Um, and then the campus itself is fairly, we consider ourselves a smaller college where I think it's 1,200 students total between traditional and adult studies. Um, and but there's a ton of space. So there's a lot of green, a lot of space to go do stuff. We got a disc golf course on campus. We have 16 different athletic teams. Obviously, the student center for the students to go and do all the things that they want to do there. And then for the program, as far as the program goes, the biggest thing for us is our coaching staff is always trying to find ways to improve this program. So our first year, we upgraded our practice goals, brought in a bunch of mini goals to try and improve practice a little bit. Last summer, we worked really hard and completely renovated our locker room, ripped it down to the bare bones, and then built it all back up. So it's a really, really nice space now that the guys really enjoy being a part of and being in. And then this past summer was just trying to continue to improve the facilities overall. So just continuing to try and keep that game field as nice as it was when you played on it. Make sure that the practice field is as nice as we can make it as well. And really just trying to make sure that we're giving our student athletes the best experience that they can have.
Awesome. Well, you're close to the heart of that conference schedule and where things are just day in, day out in this
Yep.
craziness of a fall soccer season. But walk me through what's a typical week like for your players right now in terms of, classes, practices, games, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, as far as classes go, most of our guys have the majority of their classes in the morning. And so they'll go through those, and then we'll train. Typically, we'll train at about 4:15 is when we'll start training. And then that'll go 4:15 to 5:45, 6 o'clock. Our policies, we want to keep stuff short, but the intensity has to be there. One of the things that we experienced in the past years was we would have a hour 45, 2 hour session, and the intensity just wasn't there because you just can't do that for 2 hours every single day. And so we decided that the intensity was really important to us. So we have shorter sessions, but they're really intense. And so that's usually 4:15 to 5:45, maybe 6 o'clock if we're doing something a little bit bigger sided. And then guys are off to the cafeteria for dinner. And then during the week, there's a couple different things that we do. So we have a professional development weekly meeting with our freshmen every week. So this semester we're going through the book Chop Wood, Carry Water with our freshmen, um, and just kind of helping them fall in love with the process. And that which I don't know if you've read that book or not, but the whole premise of that book is just falling in love with the process of becoming great. And so just trying to teach our guys the life lessons that the results aren't everything, and what you the end goal is not the focus, but the journey is the focus. And so that allows us to hopefully help our guys see the soccer season through that lens. Um, and then we also have a leadership council currently made up of 13 guys, that we're going through a book called You Win in the Locker Room First. And so just doing some professional development stuff with our team, with our guys, making sure that we're trying to focus on the process and focus on the things necessarily outside of just the results. How do we build our culture properly? But yeah, and then the school policy is you're only allowed to miss classes for games. So that's why our training schedules at 4:15. All classes are done by 4 p.m. And so that way no one's missing practice because of class. Um, and it kind of falls in line with our academic policies as well, where we really believe that our student athletes are students first. And so we really take the academic piece seriously. Two seasons ago, I guess two academic years ago, men's soccer was the highest academic team on campus, with a 3.53 cumulative or average GPA, average team GPA. And then last year we dropped a little bit to a 3.34, but we're hoping to kind of get that back up this year a little bit, as we really try and prepare guys for life beyond college.
No, that's great. You hear it a lot on the girls' side having that top GPA, but the boys'
Yep.
side, congrats on that one.
Thank you. We're really,
Uh,
really proud of our guys for that.
well, let's talk a little bit more about the team and the soccer side of things. Obviously, you have a big roster, so hopefully you've got a big staff. Talk to me about your staff. What role does everybody play there, and how does
Yeah.
that work?
Yeah, the staff. So we have two full-time staff, myself and then our first assistant, who he uh he doubles as the first team assistant coach and the development team head coach. So he runs all the development team sessions, and then is with us for first team games and obviously all the background decisions, and conversations. And then we also have a graduate assistant, who he's kind of helping out with both teams. His role sometimes is to take over the development team so that our first assistant can spend some time with the first team. And then we currently have a volunteer assistant coach as well who's helping out, obviously on a volunteer basis when he can, to kind of help gain a little bit more time with our guys and able to focus a little bit more on the details. So that's kind of what our staff looks like. The Our assistant, our graduate assistant, and the volunteer assistant, are at pretty much every single game, both varsity and development team. And then I attend the development team games that are here as much as I can when we don't have training. But we're our staff is always in conversation about, man, who's performing the best at the development team? How do we who's people we need to look at to call up the next day? So those conversations are always happening, but the roles are pretty fluid as well.
Okay, makes sense. All right. Well, what about you? Talk to us about your coaching style of play you're looking to implement there. What's all that look like?
Yeah. So I'm very much a relational coach. I want to get to know my guys. I want to spend time with my guys. A lot of my wife and I have kind of made it a pact that every semester we're going to have each of our guys into our house for a meal at some point during the semester. So once a week we have groups of 6 to 8 guys over to the house for dinner every week, just trying to get to know them outside of soccer. I think especially with how crazy the college soccer schedule is. There's a lot of times where, man, my only conversation with guys on campus is about the soccer piece. It's about the um, just being able to just have those conversations about the soccer, and so being able to get them off campus and get to have dinner with them and get to hear about their life stories and their questions about the U.S. and the differences between their home countries and cultures and ours is really exciting. But that's my coaching styles. I want to be able to have the relationships with our players because I at the end of the day, it's about their experience. Um, and then as far as like coaching style and what we do, we want to try and play. So we want the ball on the ground. We want to be able to possess as much as we can. We want to try and press, see if we can control the game. There's some games we get to do that more often than others. Some days we do that better than others. But our goal is to find ways to control the game with and without the ball. And can we find a way to possess and break a team down to score goals through the possession.
Okay. Well, you mentioned it before that you don't get as many contact dates, in the spring. But talk to me about what does your spring look like in general after the season? I'm
Yeah.
sure they get their Christmas off, and then when do they come back? What are they
Yep.
doing in that off season?
Yeah. So for us, the change in rules last year from 16 to 24 contact dates was huge. But I think the more important piece for us was the part that they took the fact that they took away the weeks and you were basically allowed to use those 24 days whenever you wanted to. You didn't have to use it in a specific window. So the way that we ended up doing that was every Friday we would have 11v11s for the whole semester. Just because you only get one game day at Division 3 level, we wanted our guys to have more 11v11 experience. So every Friday was 11v11s, and the fun part about that was on Monday we would call 3 guys into the office and they would draft their team. So we'd have three full teams that got drafted by 3 players every single week, and so every week the teams were different. And we gave our captain or we the captains for the week, we gave them the freedom to they had to play within our formation and our style, but they could put players wherever they wanted to. They were basically the coach. And so that the guys really enjoyed that. So that was the soccer piece that we did. We also recommended for our guys to join the intramural futsal league. So a lot of our guys were in that, playing futsal once, twice a week. And then as a team, we had our voluntary lifts January and February, which was awesome. Most of our guys came to pretty much every session, which was a lot of fun to have all those guys there and just continuing to build the relationships with each other. So that goes until March, and then once we hit March and spring break, after spring break, we pretty much went 3 to 4 times a week. So it almost felt like the season again, or at least preseason, as we tried to get ready for that game day. And then game day, the way that we've done it here is we'll host the past has been 3 teams. I'm trying to find a fourth team for this coming spring. But host 3 teams, play 3 games with our large roster. We want to try and get everybody as many minutes as possible. So then we play 3 games in that one day, getting everybody between 60 and 90 minutes.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time. Got one last question for you, and that is if you could leave folks with one piece of advice or one bit of information you think they should know about this college recruiting process, what would that be?
Yeah. Be proactive in where you want to go and be very, very detailed in your research. There's a lot of schools out there. There's a ton of universities out there, a lot of programs that each coach has their own different coaching style. Each school has their own benefits, and each school also has their own kind of pros and cons. So there's positives and negatives to everything. Find the school that fits what you're looking for, and find the coach that fits that coaches the way you want to. There's a lot of players that don't appreciate the way that I coach, and that's perfectly fine. There's a lot of players that do appreciate the way I coach, which is awesome. But a player that doesn't appreciate the way that I coach, if he comes to NC Wesleyan, is not going to have a great experience. And similarly, if they love the way that I coach, but they want to be in a big city, and that's really important to them. Well, man, Rocky Mount is not a big city, and NC Wesleyan doesn't really fit that. And so, figure out what your priorities are, list them out, and then find the schools that kind of fit those priorities, and do your research. Because for us, we want guys that are going to come here that are willing to fight to to be here, right? And so we have guys. If a guy doesn't do the research beforehand, he could come in and he's not as willing to fight to gain that space and gain that position. I think right now, as you mentioned with the transfer portal, there's a lot of students now that go to a school because they think that's going to be their fit, and whether they don't, whatever it is, whether it's not the playing time, the location, the school size, the coach, whatever it is, they end up transferring, which uh, just basically starts you back at square one. Um, and so if you do your research on the front end and are willing to put in the work and the effort to stick it out, there's a lot of benefit that can come when you're able to do the work, when you want to do the work on the front side.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Coach, really appreciate the time. Wish you the best of luck this year.
Awesome.
Hopefully can start not having as many ties.
Yeah.
Those are never fun, but at least they're
No.
not losses. So
I was gonna say they're better than losses. I'd rather have the ties than the losses, but man, wins will start feeling good once we can get them.
for sure. Well, thanks again, Coach. Talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.